you a thrill seeker? My family likes all kinds of thrills. It's probably because when my kids were little, we would go to amusement parks and everybody had to ride everything that they were tall enough to get on. And that has resulted in us having some pretty fun times over the years. Another side effect, however, was the fact that they got tired of boring kids' rides pretty early. Like this one time we went to Fun for All, and Fun for All had this little roller coaster, and my kids and my sister's kids were so bored that they decided to pretend like it was the scariest ride ever just to make fun of how lame this ride was. Yes, one of the side effects of everyone riding everything is sometimes you get bored on smaller rides. But another side effect is that sometimes motion sickness is something that you have to deal with from riding these crazy rides. Like one time a couple years ago, we took Levi with us and he rode too many rides too close to each other, and this happened. I'm gonna be honest though, I can't laugh at him too much because I get motion sick. I really do. I pretty much have to drive everywhere I go. I can't ride in the car, especially in the back seat. Oh man, that's awful. I especially can't ride on rides that go in circles. And if it's one of those rides that goes in a circle and in a circle, oh, I want to die on those rides. It makes me think of a story in the Bible that I know all of the disciples would have had a picture of me heaving off the side of the boat if I happened to be there. This story is recorded in the three synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It takes place on the Sea of Galilee. Now, the Sea of Galilee is the lowest freshwater lake on earth. And this Sea of Galilee is bordered on the eastern side by some hills, which are really mountains because they're 2,000 feet high. Now, if you get a cold, strong wind blowing over the top of these hills, what happens then, it then descends down to that sea, which happens to be warmer with nice, warm, tropical air. And as that air rises up and the cold air comes crashing down, the result is a sudden change in barometric pressure and a storm that comes out of nowhere with no advanced warning. I mean, it can just be on you in seconds. Well, the disciples and Jesus are out on this lake one day when these storms pop out of nowhere. And Jesus, well, he happened to be catching up on some much needed rest in the back of the boat. And this storm, it's a bad one. This squall has created such large waves that they are now coming over the bow and into the boat. And the Bible says that the boat was nearly swamped. In other words, there is so much water in the boat right now that it is in definite danger of sinking. Now, we assume that the disciples are feverishly bailing the boat and doing everything they can to stay afloat during this storm. And Jesus, what's he doing? Well, he's sleeping. Yes, he is asleep. What? He's asleep? The boat is flooding, the waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and Jesus is asleep. How crazy is that? That just seems absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. You ever been so tired that you fell asleep and there was absolutely nothing in the world that was going to wake you up? My wife, she used to work herself to a point of exhaustion when we first got married. But she wouldn't just fall asleep and stay asleep forever. When she was absolutely physically exhausted, she would respond a little bit differently. Her exhaustion would actually cause her to get up in the middle of the night and do crazy things that she didn't actually remember the first day. And they were so crazy that I actually started journaling them and writing them down. Let me read a couple of them to you. The first time it happened, it was in the middle of the night. And she gets out of bed and she turns on the light, and I'm squinting my eyes, wondering what in the world is going on. And she looks at me and she says, "Are you going to help me?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she again says more forcefully this time, "Are you going to help me?" And I'm thinking, I'll do whatever you want, lady. I don't want to be on the wrong side of that, but I don't actually know what you want. So I say, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And she stands there for a moment. She says, "It's not time for me to get up yet." And then she shuts off the light, climbs back in bed, and immediately starts snoring. I mean, she's out. She's out. You can't say anything else to her because she is completely asleep. And the next day, I asked her about this, and she had no idea that she had done any of that. And every time she would completely exhaust herself, we'd have another one of these little episodes. Like one night I climbed over Terry into bed, and she says, "That's smart." And I replied, "What's smart?" And Terry says, "Getting in line early. It's smart." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Joe, he's smart for getting in line early." So I asked, "Well, whose idea was it?" And she replies, "Donna." And then she rolls over and is back asleep again. Once again, had no idea that she'd done it. I don't know who Joe or Donna was, and she doesn't know who Joe or Donna was, but we are resting assured that they are very smart people. One time in the middle of the night, Terry gets out of bed and starts rooting through all of the pants, all around the room. She's just going around the room, searching through every pair of pants, one pants to the next pair. She's going through their pockets. And I think, what is so important that she felt the need to get up in the middle of the night to find out if she left something in her pockets? So I look at her and say, "What are you doing?" And she looks at me like I am the dumbest man on earth for asking this question. And she responds, "I'm looking for circles." And then she gets back into bed and falls asleep. Yeah. Sometimes you reach a point of exhaustion that you do some crazy things. Absolutely. So the only thing that I can think is maybe Jesus was at the point that he was so exhausted, he was snoozing away, even with the boat rocking and rolling and almost sinking. But I don't think so. I think Terry would have even woken him up during that episode. And Jesus, he was a guy that knew the importance of rest. So I'm sure that he wouldn't let him get to the point of utter sheer exhaustion that you can sleep during the middle of a violent storm. Well, then how in the world was he resting peacefully in the middle of a storm? Seems a little crazy, doesn't it? How in the world could someone be resting peacefully while going through the middle of a storm? Well, he's Jesus. So let me tell you 4 reasons why. Number 1, he is Jesus, the Son of God, God himself, part of the Holy Trinity. So first of all, he is all-knowing and certainly knew that the storm was coming. And at the end of it, everything was going to be okay. So there was nothing to really worry about. So that's number 1. Number 2, all things in the universe were made through him. So he is Lord over all things, including the weather. So it's not really a concern because he can stop it whenever he wants to. Number 3, he is the Son of God, a beloved child of God. And he knew that God was not going to let anything happen to him because he came for a very specific purpose. And he was going to fulfill that purpose. Number 4, he came from heaven and knows just how amazing heaven actually is. So death, not really something that he would be afraid of because it is followed by heaven, the place that I'm sure he would love to get back to. Knowing those 4 things would make it possible to find peace in the middle of the storm. Absolutely it would. I mean, if we had those 4 things in our lives, we would absolutely have peace, even during crazy moments. Do you know who weren't at peace in the middle of the storm? Well, that would be the disciples. They are battling to stay afloat, and they are bailing the boat, and it looks like they're losing the battle when they finally decide to wake Jesus up. And they don't wake him up in confidence that he can fix this. They wake him up in a panic that they're all going to die. They say, "Teacher, Don't you care if we drown? These are not words of men who are confident in the Son of God, who they are traveling with. These are the words of men who are not calmly asking for Jesus for help, but instead the words of men who are desperate and have become completely overwhelmed with fear and lost their hope. And Jesus stands up and he says, "Quiet, be still." And the wind died down. And then it was completely calm. Of course, the wind and the waves listened. He's Lord of all creation. And Jesus looks at his disciples and says, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" That's an interesting question. I mean, why are you so afraid? I think the answer to that is a pretty simple one, don't you? Gee whiz, I don't know, maybe, 'cause the boat's about to sink? We're about to drown? I mean, that's probably it. But he asked a second question. What was that question? Do you still have no faith? What does he mean by, do you still have no faith? Well, have you ever been flying comfortably in an airplane, only to look out the window in the middle of the flight and then yell out, "This plane's gonna fall out of the sky, we're all gonna die"? Yeah, why aren't you gonna do that? Because there's a pilot flying the plane. I mean, he is in control of it. You guys are moving in a very specific direction because there's somebody in charge of it, the pilot. Why aren't you afraid that a bus is going to go careening off of a cliff whenever you're riding in it? Because there's a bus driver. Yeah. Why shouldn't you be afraid when a storm hits your boat? Because Jesus is in the boat. Jesus is basically saying, "Why are you so afraid? Did you forget that I was in the boat?" And they did. I mean, they forgot that Jesus was in the boat. In 1633, Rembrandt painted a famous painting called "The Storm on the Sea of Galilee." This painting is a little bit of an exaggerated look of his vision of what this boat would be during this ordeal. And Rembrandt is actually said to have painted himself into this picture. And if you look at this picture, you'll see a guy that stands out from all of the rest. Right in the middle, right up front, you will see a man holding onto the rigging and holding onto his hat and staring straight out of the picture into the eyes of whomever is looking at the painting. And it's almost as if those eyes are asking, "Which one are you?" What does he mean by that? Which one are you? Well, although this was a physical storm that the disciples were facing, it was definitely an emotional battle and a spiritual battle. And in our lives, we have same sorts of storms descend on us. We have things that hit us completely out of nowhere. I can't watch that clip too many times. It is just so amazing. He never saw it coming. Absolutely never saw it coming. Neither did the woman who unfortunately did this thing to him. We all have moments in life where we just don't see it coming, where we just get sideswiped. Moments when the turmoil of life comes crashing down on us. Don't we all have things that are thrust into our lives that threatens to swamp our boat? Maybe it's a new health diagnosis. Maybe it's a financial crisis. Maybe it's a car accident or losing a job, getting dumped. Maybe it's the death of a loved one or even a secret that has come to light. Life surprises us. And the storms of our lives definitely rock our boats. So Rembrandt would like to know, which one are you? You got a couple of options. Are you the one battling the rigging on your own, trusting in your own strength to see this through? You've got this. You don't need anybody. Asking help is for the weak. Is that you? Are you the one puking over the side of the boat, completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. You are frozen. You are sick. You can't seem to do anything but stay incapacitated in shock. Are you the one who is standing in the back doing nothing because you've lost all hope? Why do anything if, after all, nothing will ever change? It's always going to be the same. Or are you the one grabbing Jesus' robe and pulling it, yelling, "Don't you care if we drown?" Are you in a state of panic, being crushed by the anxiety of it all? Which one are you? I think the truth is that we all take turns being each one of these people. But honestly, no matter which of these people you choose to be, they'll all eventually suffer the same fate. They will all eventually drown. No matter whether you're the one trying to push through with your own strength, or if you have given up, or if you're frozen in fear, it doesn't make a difference. They all drown. We will all drown. For the same exact reason that the disciples almost drowned. Do you know what that reason was? Yeah, they forgot who was in the boat with them. That's what Jesus is talking about when he says, "Do you still have no faith?" Jesus was in the boat the whole time. He had never left. He was there when the storm was approaching. He was there when the storm arrived. He was there when the storm started rocking the boat. And he was still there when the situation became desperate. And do you know why the situation became desperate? It's because they forgot who was in the boat with them. Because if they remembered who was in the boat with them, they would have woken them up way before they were on the verge of drowning. And maybe they would have told you that they thought they could handle this on their own, or that they like to fix their own problems, or that they didn't know this was going to be that big of a deal, or that they already knew how much Jesus had on his plate and they didn't want to add any more to it. But in reality, those are just excuses that we use to make ourselves feel better after not doing what we're supposed to do. If they would have gotten Jesus involved at the very beginning instead of screaming at him to bail them out in the end, things probably would have gone a whole lot smoother. If you look closely into the picture, you'll notice that there is one man who tends to get overlooked. There's one man who just kind of blends in because he isn't all lit up by the lighting. It's kind of hidden amongst the other characters. Your eyes aren't attracted to him because of his action, but he is in action. There is one man who is quietly and calming, kneeling in prayer at the feet of Jesus. And in the original picture, you can almost make out a halo above his head, which signifies that this is the man that we're meant to be. People who are constantly with their eyes held on Jesus through calm waters and rough seas. People who are constantly in communion with our Lord, so that we never forget he's in the boat with us. People who constantly, with our attention and our prayers, offer them to Jesus, so that we can have peace even in the midst of the most violent of waters. If you are in a rough patch right now, if you are struggling, if you are battling, if life is threatening to swamp you, then let me ask you one question. Did you remember to wake Jesus up? Because he's been in the boat the whole time. He's just waiting for you to say that you need him. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care. God bless. Hope to see you soon.